Hello, everybody. We're just getting started, just letting some people filter into the room and get going. We've got an amazing panel for you again today on supplier diversity inclusion. This is part 2 of an original panel that we had about a month ago with crazy numbers of folks, and we didn't get through everything. So we've asked the entire panel to come back and meet with us again. We've got representatives from all around the world. I'm just going to do some quick housekeeping for you right now, and then I'm going to hand it off to our Master of Ceremonies, Clifford Bailey. That said, you are now inside of our Zoom room, as always, with our live studio audience. If you have questions, please use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Just ask questions so that we can see them of the panel and the panel can engage with them. And please also feel free to use the chat to say hello, tell us where you're from. We are broadcasting live on LinkedIn Live as well. We'll be monitoring LinkedIn Live, and if there are any questions on LinkedIn Live, I will be handing those off to Clifford, and I will be moving into the background now so that Clifford can take over. Thank you all once again to everybody on this amazing panel. I don't think there is a better representation of supplier diversity on the planet than all of you. I am thrilled and honored that you would actually take time out of your schedule for Procurement Foundry and for our membership, so thank you for that. And with that, Clifford, take it away, sir.
Thanks, Mike. Good day, everyone. I am Clifford A. Bailey, President and CEO of TechSoft Systems. I am excited to be here once again to be your host and moderator for addressing the big question. What do we mean by supplier diversity around the world? Understand, this is part 2. So those of you who were not present in part 1 should know how we are going to present today. You are requested to participate in this session. And the way you participate is put forth questions, also put forth solutions and suggestions or your concerns in the entire dialogue. I will be monitoring the Q&A as well as the chat, but prefer you put information in the chat. And as they always say, you get what you put in out of it. So if you do not participate, you're not going to get the maximum out of this. So we want to hear your opinions, your thoughts on how we can improve supplier diversity. And as wild as your ideals may be, put them in there because we will try our very best to address those. As Mike said earlier, we have this very distinguished panel whom have brought forth their knowledge around supplier diversity to you today. But we're going to do it a little different. We're going to focus on the strategic imperatives inside and outside of the companies. So again, it's important for you also to share so we can share with those in the audience as to what your ideals may be as well. So let's get started. I'm asking the panel to introduce themselves. Please do. Cassandra?
Well, good morning. Let me say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. When we're in a global panel, we got to recognize all the time zones. So my name is Cassandra Dorrington. I'm President and CEO of Canadian Aboriginal Minority Supplier Council, or CAMC. And so I'm coming to you live from Canada. We cover coast to coast to coast, and we certify Indigenous and/or people of color owned businesses. Delighted to be with you today. I'll hand it off to Elizabeth.
Thank you, Cassandra. I'm Elizabeth Vasquez, the CEO and co-founder of We Connect International, and many thanks to Procurement Foundry for hosting all of us. This is a very important conversation with some of my favorite people in the whole wide world. So I know we're going to talk a lot about what we can do as certifying bodies to find these underutilized suppliers, develop their capacity to compete and to win, certify and verify who they are, and also make sure that the buyers understand the opportunities and how to take advantage of the work that these organizations do. So really looking forward to a productive conversation.
Gary.
Good day, everyone. My name is Gary Joseph. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the South African Supplier Diversity Council, coming to you from the Southern Hemisphere. I know it's probably warm for all of the other panelists up north, but we are experiencing winter down here. As the SASDC, our primary responsibility and mission is to support our corporate members with certifying and connecting them to Black-owned businesses. And we do so as part of the objective of creating a more inclusive South African economy. I'm happy to be here today and looking forward to the discussions as part 2 of this webinar series.
Mayank?
Good day, everyone. I try to do good day instead of good morning, good afternoon, good evening, you know. And a huge congratulations to Mike and Claire and everyone at Procurement Foundry for organizing this fantastic series, because what it does is it brings the global leaders who are as passionate as every one of you over here in pushing supplier diversity and boundaries for that, and opening up opportunities for underserved communities. So I am Mayank Shah. I'm the founder and CEO of Minority Supplier Development UK, MSD UK. We are the advocacy organizations in the UK that certifies ethnic minority businesses, with a plan to go into Europe over the next 3 years.
Pavel?
Good evening from Europe. I'm connecting to you from Vienna, so the capital of Austria. I'm Pavel Schubert. I'm the co-founder of EGLCC. EGLCC is the European LGBTIQ Chamber of Commerce. We advocate on behalf of the LGBTIQ-owned businesses in Europe, and we already have local presence. Local presence meaning also the local chambers. So there is the German chamber with us at EGLCC, there is Italian chamber, there is Scandinavian chamber, and there is also covering the CE region, East meets West. And I'm super excited to again today join already the second session.
All right.
Handing over to Peter.
Thank you, Pavel, and hello, everyone. Hello from the heart of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. My name is Peter Zurp. I'm part of a team that runs Accenture's Global Supplier Inclusion and Sustainability Program. Super excited to be again in this panel, and I think we should do it a monthly one now. It's one of my favorite hangouts. And so looking forward to share our learnings and our best practices together with all these amazing organizations that are in this panel. Thank you.
Justin?
Well, good day, good morning, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. I'm Justin Nelson, co-founder and president of the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce of the US and in GLCC Global. And thanks to Procurement Foundry for bringing us together again. I'm going to echo what Peter said. We had such a good time last time, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. We didn't want it to end. And luckily, we have a part 2 today. So looking forward to the discussion. Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, now you've heard from this distinguished panel give their introductions. Now we're about to have this most interesting conversation. We're about to raise it up better than we did in part 1. We're coming with part 2, so get prepared. Those of you who aren't strapped in, get strapped in, because they're about to blow your minds. So that being the case, let's level set for those who did not attend part 1 with defining what do we mean by supplier diversity around the world. Wow, they're so excited about this. They're stunned. They're stunned by the question that they've heard before. They didn't move, but now they will. Cassandra's coming on first. She's leading the pack because what? She's north of us. Go ahead, Cassandra, please share.
Well, I know my counterparts will jump in because we all have in our mind what the picture looks like. It's a strategic, proactive approach to include those not yet represented at the table in your supply chain, in your procurement environment. If I'm in Canada, supplier diversity in Canada is looking at other than mainstream. So I'm looking at Indigenous, people of color, I'm looking at LGBT, I'm looking at women, I'm looking at veterans, I'm looking at persons with disability. These groups have not been at the procurement table. They've not been included to the most part in the supply chain. Supplier diversity in Canada is how do we get that group at the table? How do we become more inclusive, not just from corporate, but from government? And I'm sure my other peers will jump in and overlay on that. That's the essence of what we're driving. So I'm driving in Canada and we're driving beyond our borders. How do we get our suppliers into the supply chain wherever it may be?
Elizabeth, you're shaking your head. So yes. I know you want to get in here. Jump in. Since you're the rookie to the group, jump in here, rookie. in this session?
The rookie that is learning every day from all of you and the women business owners that we serve and our corporate members like Peter. We now do this in 130 countries. And so while there are some very common themes about what supplier diversity and inclusion is, just as Cassandra noted, it's about including underutilized suppliers, having access to those suppliers, and those suppliers being inspired to actually knock on the doors of the largest buyers of the world, whether they be corporates or governments or multilaterals. So there's huge opportunity. In the space that we're in with women-owned businesses, it's usually pretty straightforward. They are underutilized, whether they're OECD or wealthy economies or developing or least developed economies. Women are still at 1% of the spend. So that is one aspect of underutilized community around the world in every country. But as Cassandra noted, and everyone will speak to, we have to understand that there are members of the LGBT community, there are people with disabilities, there are ethnic minorities around the world that do not have equal access, or in some cases, any access. And we have to address that. It is a huge market failure. And I'll leave it with my colleagues to help educate all of us about what those different groups mean, because it's not the same, especially when you look at ethnic minority communities. It really depends on the country, it depends on the region. So I'll turn it over maybe to Mayank to jump in on that one, or Gary.
Yes, Elizabeth, I think very rightly said, both to you and Cassandra. To me personally, for 16 years, we have been fighting with the corporate Britain to recognize supplier diversity and make it mainstream and part of their corporate strategy. But I think the pandemic and post-pandemic, the growing inequality in our society has actually shaken the corporate world, and now supplier diversity is part of the main corporate strategy. That's what we are seeing. And one of the reasons when you speak to British PLC, what we are seeing is that it's about economic inclusion, because that's what they are trying to address, the issue of how can we make sure that they reduce the inequality in the communities and drive economic inclusion. And they see supplier diversity as a key vehicle, to drive that. And I think that's what we are seeing in this part of the world.
Pavel?
Maybe I can, sorry.
Yep.
No, go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
Sorry. Just want to give, so I just wanted to jump in. And, the reason why we're calling it Supplier Inclusion and Sustainability, our program, is that, we really want to make sure that we include everybody. We want to, like I said in the conference from ETLCC last month, we want to come out as an inclusive business, because we want to make sure that everybody gets an equal seat at the table and gets an opportunity to show their innovations, to show their solutions that can help us become better, a better company. And I think that's what's the most important for us. And through these organizations that are surrounding me, we are able to connect with all those businesses, and it has enriched our company and our clients.
Pavel?
Yeah, I mean, to make the definition maybe complete, what for us is super important is that supply diversity is not only in the regions where it's well known, so probably like US. So we are super excited to see that supply diversity is also coming not only to Europe, but also to some regions where really the business is needed, right? And we'll be more than happy than later for today tell you more about maybe Poland and Hungary and what's happening when it comes to LGBTIQ businesses and human rights there.
Justin, we got to include you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I might answer it by saying what supplier diversity is not. And it is not a handout. It is not charity work. It is about empowering communities that historically haven't been able to get to the starting line. And what we've found, and what I think Peter on the corporate side would agree, corporate partners have found, is innovative, cost-effective, nimble, hungry suppliers that are doing this work because they're qualified to do it. And if they're not qualified today, we're helping them scale so that they can be qualified tomorrow. And we're building out equity, because you can't have equality if you don't have equity. And at the end of the day, what we're doing as organizations is, nourishing our businesses, getting them the right running shoes, and getting them to the starting line. So I think it's just really important as a baseline that we realize that supplier diversity is not charity work. It is absolutely imperative economic development work.
Well, Justin, based on the fact that you stated it that way, I have to follow this up with a question to you, and the others can chime in. So given that you've explained what it's not, which also implies what it is how do we advance economic opportunities for both corporations and suppliers?
You know, I would answer that by something as simple as opening up new markets to one another. You know, I look at the LGBTQ space, and 84% of my community will change brands when a brand exhibits either positive or negative attitudes towards the segment. And so by being something as simple as inclusive in your HR practices, your marketing, and of course your supply chain, you have an opportunity to gain market share in that space. Conversely, for a business to understand that a corporation is looking to do business with them, not despite the fact that they're LGBTQ, but when they have a quality product at a competitive price, they're looking to do business because of it. And so the opportunity is there. It's about building this community of corporate support on the one side and critical mass of suppliers on the other side. And when they're in balance, there's a great synergy there for there to be opportunities for suppliers on the contracting side, but also opportunities for the corporation, not only as the market, but also in their own HR recruitment and retention efforts. We want to see ourselves supported by the companies we work for and with, whether it's as an employee or as a supplier. And I think it's that simple on how we can identify the economic opportunities for both sides.
Peter, jump in here and share more.
Yeah, I think for us, it really means that we get access to, well, we already said it, great innovations, cost competitive solutions. But it also, you know, I think it's also important that besides your workforce, I think your supply chain should also reflect the society, the market you operate in, and also the clients that you serve, right? You also want to make sure that, you know, your value chain and your supply chain reflects your client base. And I think, yeah, for us, it's like Justin said before, it's definitely not a handout. You're not being hired because you're diverse. We really want, at the end of the day, you still have to be a strong supplier, but our program helps you to get there. And I think also want to touch on a little bit about how our mentoring program works. It's an investment for us in making you successful as a supplier to us. Okay. And I think that helps us grow as well, because we learn from you as well. You know, it's not just us supporting you, it's also the other way around, because you can support us as an organization.
Gary, you looking like you're ready to jump in. Come on in. Elizabeth, get in here. You got to fight your way to get your space.
Well, I know that we make a mention about the value of inclusivity, but at the crux of it all is the value that has been proven time and time again, the value of diversity, and how diversity drives innovation, how diversity drives a better responsiveness within the marketplace, better appeal. And supply diversity is also about diversifying your supply chain to leverage the value of diversity within your supply chain through greater representation, through greater different perspectives, different solutions that comes from the diverse base. But it's also then recognizing that the lack of inclusivity needs a deliberate intervention. Now, where does the value come from it? It comes from the shift of the convention that has been exclusionary, and through the inclusion, a different culture that you created that is focused on mutual value creation, that goes beyond just the upstream benefits into the supply chain, but downstream into liberating market opportunities. And that different perspective on how those market opportunities can be unlocked and better serviced in order to have more satisfied customers. So it's really just looking at the value that resides within the area of diversity. And much as corporates are looking to extract as much value as they can within their own organizations. So suppliers also looking to diversify their customer base. And by doing so, creating more value within their business, but also to the customers that they service. So it's about mutual value creation in any case, and not the handout approach, but it has to be deliberate, it has to be focused, and it has to be about that deliberate inclusion, because there's something missing. It's like what has been mentioned by our speakers before, that market failure that is not visible is the lost opportunity within the marketplace that supply diversity through supply chain can bring to the party.
Clifford, if I can overlay, it's been interesting. As a result of the pandemic, we have seen the value diversity come to the forefront. Supply chains have now been strengthened because we have local suppliers. They are now reaching out to our diverse suppliers to make sure they're part of what we used to do at a lot of offshoring now has become on the continent, in the country, and it's become a big factor for driving our diverse suppliers to the table, getting them in front of people to say, oh, I didn't realize we had that opportunity to be able to do it here. So in the Canadian landscape, I see a lot more focus on, oh my God, sustainability of our local supply chain by including these diverse suppliers. As well, the Canadian government has been huge now on trying to drive innovation, because you don't know what you don't know. They've had this range of suppliers they've been working with for years. By the time they open the door to these new innovative suppliers, as you've heard the others say, it's like, oh my God, we are now changing processes as a result of that. And I'm sure the others have seen it in their own territory. The value of diversity has never been more so at the forefront than we've seen it during the pandemic and as we're coming out of the pandemic.
You know, to that point, we've seen a lot of change as a result of the pandemic, from technology to the utilization of suppliers to different workflows. So the pandemic has shaken things up to a certain extent. And what I have seen that was very different is the fact that I've seen some diverse suppliers that doing business with corporations that didn't get vetted. They showed up, they had a solution, and the companies just started doing business with them. Having said that, that was intentional based upon a pain point. But how do we just move to the point of recognizing it's intentional so that more diverse firms get an opportunity? How do we make that happen? Or how would you make that happen?
I think fundamental to that is how the procurement profession is changing. And I see over the last 5 to 6 years, the procurement function in any large corporation is changing the demographic of procurement function. It's much more diverse, much more younger, much more gender balanced. There are more women in that profession. People from different backgrounds are there. People are coming into procurement profession because they want to make a difference. That's my experience. I think that's going to trigger the change that we are looking for to drive supplier diversity. And I think that is important.
So Mayank, what I'm hearing you say, and I may be misinterpreting this, which is, as procurement diversifies, diversity will increase.
Yes.
So if that is indeed the case, that's the message in which we need to be communicating globally. But we also know that corporations make decisions based upon data. So how do we demonstrate that from a perspective that causes rapid change?
Look, what you're asking is exactly what Cassandra was sharing, which is the corporate buyer saw firsthand what happens when you focus only on supply chain consolidation. They thought they were mitigating risk, and instead they took on massive risk, and they're going to continue to have massive risk in an uncertain Delta variant and every other kind of variant environment where we think we're post-COVID. We are so not in most of the world. And so I think that is the data, is you cannot afford to have all of your eggs in one basket. You cannot be totally reliant on 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or even 100 major suppliers. You have to have access to all of the best suppliers. And we all have to do a better job to get those growth-oriented small businesses that deliver that innovation, the job creation, and those solutions that we all desperately need to feel more comfortable with knocking on these doors. Because it's not that, you know, corporations are helping them. The corporations need these small businesses to be able to anticipate the needs of their market, especially when these value chains are broken at times. And so it's really critical. There's true urgency right now for all of us to work together to make it as easy as possible for this supply to connect with this particular demand. And it's not rocket science. We're all doing it. We just now need to do it at scale.
Absolutely, and I just want to give an example. When the Delta variant happened in India, we wanted our employees to be supplied with anything that they needed, from hand sanitizer to ventilators, and the diverse suppliers came to the rescue and helped us to, because they had the supplies, and they helped us to get those supplies into the Indian market so that we could support our employees and their families. And that just showed also that we were actually able to onboard all those supplies and make it happen. So if we can do it in a crisis, we should also definitely think about it. How can we design this better post-crisis? Because apparently we can onboard those suppliers. We can make the processes easier to connect with them and onboard them and make them a supply to our corporations. So we really need to think about how can we do this post-crisis, because apparently we can. So let's just do it and keep doing it, even if there's not a crisis.
If I can add to what Peter's saying, it demonstrates the importance of constantly reviewing business processes and how business processes don't necessarily create value, but can erode value. During the COVID-19 crisis, through the onset of it, what became disaster management within many companies resulted in the circumvention of the day-to-day procurement rules, enabling new opportunities for diverse suppliers to demonstrate their capabilities. If we're not constantly reviewing the way in which we do things, and we only follow the set of rules that guides the procurement process, that's the way in which we actually prevent the inclusion of these type of businesses that we have, and procurement has a role to play. Procurement nowadays are change agents within any organizations. Like Mayank has mentioned, they are change agents within the function itself through the introduction of more representation, diversity from an age, gender, ethnic minority perspective, geographic reach even, coming in with these different views. And much the same, they are agents of change on how a company interfaces with third parties within their supply chain. It's up to the procurement function to question the rules and to see how these rules actually prevents them from introducing and creating more diversity within their supply chains.
Justin, you've been trying to get in here.
You know what? The best part about this is we're not at a loss for people looking to get a comment in. So I will wait my turn gladly, but I just wanted to sort of pick up on the theme here. And I think one of the unintended consequences, very positive consequence of COVID, was just the ability to get 2, 3, 4, 5 layers deep in a company. And that's something we absolutely should take out of this. So, you know, the buyer, the person that's making the purchasing decision, actually has the time now, or have had the time, to be a part of the dialogue. And for everyone on this call or that's watching that is in supplier diversity, that is your main role, the best thing you can do is bring that buyer into the conversation. Then they're able to see firsthand the nimbleness, the innovation, the ability to, quick turnaround time, all of the sorts of things that Elizabeth was talking about that really put the stress test to the max on this supplier consolidation. And we have to have buy-in from the buyer, buy-in from the senior leader. That's incredibly important. And this has taught us that we can do that. I mean, we had 5 years of digital transformation in 18 months. And a big part of that was just the ability to bring the parties that rarely would ever get together to the conversation with these potential suppliers. So we absolutely need to take that out on the south side of this. Once we get there, I'm with you, Elizabeth, we're not even close, but this is something that I think will help impact the importance of understanding around supplier diversity.
Well, given that the pandemic has created this change and it has broken the supply chain in multiple corporations in different types of pieces. And so Seb has asked the question, what is most important to buyers during this period of time?
I saw that, and I don't understand why you have to pick. I mean, if you're an inclusive organization, you're an inclusive organization. It's how you hire, it's how you promote, it's how you source. I mean, really, how you spend your money says everything about what you value and what you care about. And of course, how you treat your people, how you manage your talent, how you build your partnerships. You don't have to pick. You really can do all of those things well, because there are organizations like the ones here that can help you do it. You don't have to figure out from scratch. There's lots of your peers that are happy to help share best practices.
But I think to your point earlier, Elizabeth, though, if I'm a buyer, time is of the essence. We have to make sure we make things as easy as possible, because buyers, when we're in the pandemic in full force, it's like, how quick can we get vaccines? How quick can we get PPEs? So we need to make sure we got our suppliers front and center, so they don't have to think twice about how do they find them, where are they at. So it's imperative for us to continue this conversation about having who are the suppliers, what are the categories, where they're at, front and center. Because what happens, and we all, I mean, never having children, and so take it for what it's worth, women forget the pain of pregnancy or the pain of delivery soon thereafter. We will get through this pandemic. Corporations will go back to, will I rationalize? We have to make sure we've embedded the value of what they're seeing now so intently that when we're out of this, this is part and parcel of what business looks like. It's become part of the leadership, it's become part of their policy, it's become part of the processes. We have to make sure that happens, because memories are very short. We'll turn a corner and all of a sudden it's like, oh, were we working with them before? We now want to save money. We got in this because we were saving money, but not driving value, but saving money. We've got to get back to how do we incorporate the two again.
Peter, you're representing the corps right now. So how do you get your buyers to respond in the way in which Cassandra and Elizabeth just explained, if at all? Now, so we're leaning on that Accenture consulting too, right? So we're looking for the answer.
Well, at Accenture, some people call me Chief Nudger, because I keep nudging them and making sure that that they they stay close to us. And I think we at Accenture we do have a lot of passionate buyers, and not just buyers, also stakeholders, internal clients, leadership folks who are really keen to support this in their own, in their own capability. And what we, for instance, do is we make sure that they get connected with organizations here, that they get to the conferences, they go to the calls, the meetings, and even make them so targeted that they really get the right kind of potential suppliers in front of them that actually, they could do potentially business with. Make it as easy as possible for them to meet with them, talk to them, learn from them, and hopefully, hopefully also have an opportunity for them. So, and that's what our role is. I'm not a buyer. I used to be a buyer, but I'm not a buyer anymore. I'm a supplier diversity professional. I'm the gatekeeper. I make sure that these connections happen together with Elizabeth and Pavel and Mayank and everybody else. So, so that's what we keep doing it. And on the other side, I touched on our mentoring program. We also try to engage them in other ways than just connecting them with opportunities. We also try to make it fun for them, because we have a lot of people at Accenture, 569,000 people who are brilliant, and they have a great talent and knowledge that we also want them to leverage, not just to our clients, but also to smaller and diverse businesses. So, and they like that. They like to talk about them, like to talk about themselves, but they also like to talk about their great expertise. So we also try to encourage them to do that, so that they can also contribute in a different way than just handing over a contract.
Mayank, you had something to share.
Yeah, I think going back to what Justin said about and Cassandra said about getting the buyers to to be part of, a supplier diversity dialogue. I give you one example. Recently, one of our minority business signed up a multi-million-dollar deal with a financial institution to serve them not in UK but in Southeast Asia and Singapore. And the only reason they were able to do that was because they were able to meet the buyer who was sitting in Singapore and had a chance to use the technology and have a meeting. Now that is what this pandemic has given us opportunity to bring people who are decision makers but are not in country to still get a chance to come and meet the buyers. And I think we have to continue, as we go and get back to normalcy, all of us as an advocacy organization need to think about how we can leverage technology to bridge this gap between buyers and suppliers and bring them closer. I see all our events being hybrid even in the future when we come back to normal. We need to make sure that that enables the decision makers to come closer and have face to face with our suppliers. On the secondly, I think it's also a big responsibility on us as advocacy organizations to keep finding. We are like scouting teams, going out in the market and finding the right people. I always say that, many of you don't know about football because this is what we call over here in UK, but we are like scouting teams and our corporate members are Premier League clubs. We need the best footballers to present to them. Only then they are going to buy them. So we need to make sure that we need to up our games and make sure that we get the right businesses.
Well, having said that, and Peter, since you're corporate, we're going to use you as an example, right? And so each of your organizations have corporate members, and many of you share corporate members like Accenture. And given that each of you have a similar mindset, how do we, notice I said we, convince those common members to be the leaders in this space by being the first, second, or third option for buyers? How do we become top of mind for buyers to really look to diverse suppliers opposed to maintaining the habit of going with who's been in place for years and of the mindset we can't go wrong if we keep using them? But the pandemic has shown that's not always true. And when it's not true, it's tragic. So, long question, but you get my point.
People
I think
operate.
Sorry, Cassandra. Yeah.
Sure. People operate, it's either a carrot or a stick. We all are intentional that way. If you want buyers, if you want people to do something, make it easy for them to do and reward them for doing it. So therefore, if this becomes one of the goals of the organization, when we talk about metrics, if the metrics are, we want it this, people will drive to what you reward them for. I mean, you can only use the stick once or twice. You use the reward over and over again. So we have to make sure how are corporations placing that in their strategy, rewarding that as part of the performance for people to do it. They used to reward cost savings. That's why people were saving costs. They're mitigating risk is all part of it. How we want to make sure we can't lose. You've got to reward risk taking. You've got to reward innovation. In doing so, that enables us to bring our suppliers to the table.
I think the other thing I would like to add over here is we as an advocacy organizations look at what corporate focus is. Currently, in the corporate world, the big focus is on UN sustainable goals, climate change, energy, everything is important. We need to then match that with our supplier base that are also in those areas so that we bring innovative ideas and solutions so that they can look at favorably at that, because you just can't keep turning the same traditional businesses off, where there is no space. We need to look at, identify the gaps, identify the future of supply chain. What are the future supply chain requirements? Go out, and that's what MST UK does. We have our innovation challenge that we run. This year, we focused on 4 SDG, categories and invited applications. And there's amazing innovative ideas that have come through that process. We have to keep changing and evolving so that we are meeting our future supply chain needs of our corporations.
think also, Clifford, if I can come in there,
Sure.
it's also about the collaboration between advocacy organizations like ours in order to provide a holistic and a global form of support that is consistent with what the buying function of those multinationals are looking for. Through the consistency in what we are able to do by us being able to close the gaps that may exist and provide the type of support at a localized level when a localized solution is required, provide a global solution when a global solution is required. Through the way in which we collaborate, we get more buy-in and we get greater consistency. We are all creatures of habit. And the more we get the habit on the part of buyers to be tapping firstly into advocacy organizations who their companies have invested in, because I also look at corporate members as investing in organizations like ours in terms of the mission that we perform and the work that we do, because there's the long-term benefit associated with it. It's going to give them that competitive advantage. And already we are collaborating quite well at the global level to ensure that globally we're closing the gaps, but also locally that we are collaborating to create the opportunities for our local minority businesses, our women-owned businesses, our LGBTQ businesses. All of that is about collaboration, and platforms like this is one of the means whereby there is a consistent message that our audience would probably be picking up on what we say and what we do. And that's part of the collaboration that we offer.
Well, Pavel, we got to get your view on this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what I would only add is a certain, I mean, not global, but a certain look beyond the traditional market. So, I mean, Mayank was very well talking about what is our role as advocacy organizations. I think there are markets where supply diversity is already well established, and also there, I mean, we have a certain good way of also finding LGBTIQ owned and operated businesses, because let's not forget it's somehow linked to the whole coming out in business, and it's something not that easy to do. But there are also in our situation markets, and let's take Central and Eastern Europe. I mean, not only that this whole coming out is not easy, but also this whole supply diversity as a way of social change or helping social change is visible. So I would maybe only ask the corporate environment to be more interested in also regions which are maybe underrepresented as well, but especially where somehow including supply diversity in the practices would mean additional help towards actually the business environment, especially these diverse businesses.
That is, if we can make this change, this would be impactful without question. So Peter, Allison Campbell asked the question. She's piggybacking off of Cassandra's point of supply, where the supply exists. And she's asking, given that we know where the supply exists and the buyers don't, how do we make sure that the buyers find out where it exists? That's one. And two, follow that with, how do you connect with them? How do you get the buyers to do that? Now, Cassandra's talking about the carrot and the stick, but you can't provide the carrot and you can't provide the stick all the time. So they got to go and do this on their own. So how would you suggest that happens?
Well, I think, coming from my own experience, we do a lot of advocacy internally. And, like I said, we are a global program. So we have a program now in 20 countries. So we do a lot around advocacy, but also positive peer pressure. So we create best practices with people who we already work with in countries and make sure that they get recognized for the work that they're doing. Because for a lot of people, this is a +1 as well. So we want to make sure that they get recognized for it. And then other people also will, maybe that's the carrot and the stick as well. It's more a carrot probably, or a cookie. So we show them that they get recognized for the great work that they're doing with us, and it feels that it's working. And I think also a lot of people get this. A lot of people don't really need too much pressure to be convinced that this is important. So we get them in our corner really quickly. And, you know, I'm constantly looking at, I'm not the only chief nurturer, but I'm also chief explorer, according to my boss, Nidra, because I constantly look at markets where we as Accenture can also make a difference, right? We're not in 130 countries yet, but we are serving clients in 120 countries. So that's 120 markets where we could potentially have a program. So I constantly look at, you know, where are the possibilities? Where are there changes coming? And, you know, we're looking, for instance, currently with Reconnect at the Middle East, because we see that a lot of our folks within leadership, looking at how these countries are changing the way they're looking at gender inclusion, they see that we can make a difference there. And so that's where we jump in and say, okay, well, we can help you make a difference there. So, you know, we have a whole program already designed that we have a lot of experience in the US and in Europe. And so, you know, let's do this together. And that's how we get them into our corner and create success. But it's a lot of talking, it's a lot of soapbox, or in my case, beside the soapbox, because I'm very tall. But it's a lot of talking and convincing people and creating best practices, because then you can show what you can create with each other, and that inspires others.
Okay, well, let me just share with the audience very quickly. If you have questions, please put them in, because we are clearly running out of time and we have a whole lot to share. And so there may be a part 3 coming based upon the audience interest. But let's be real clear, ask your questions, because this panel is available to share. And as you've already heard, there's a lot of information that you can take away with you right now and make a difference in your organization, right? So, Pavel, you have the youngest organization in this group. And so what is the biggest success that you've had thus far in getting the suppliers and the buyers together? And what can others learn from that?
It's true that we are the youngest organization. So EGLCC is by now 2 years old. But what I'm somehow super proud of, and here also great somehow thanks and compliments to Elizabeth Mayank, so We Connect and MSD UK, that we actually, and few weeks ago it was the case, we are also running joint events. Joint events meaning, well, we have a spotlight series or some kind of showcase. So we are now organizing a showcase for the European businesses, where We Connect is with women-owned businesses, where MSD UK is with ethnic minorities, and we, EGLCC, with our LGBTIQ businesses. And I think this somehow says a lot, because we are not only kind of pushing our own territory. No, we want to, from the very start, to collaborate. And I think this somehow makes us super proud that we are part of one family, and we are actually pushing forward the similar agenda.
Okay. Well, given, as always, we have so much more that we would like to share, and given that the time is dwindling, I am going to ask each and every one of you to provide a wisdom nugget to the audience that is actionable and impactful, or just thought-provoking for them to go away and make a difference, be they a supplier or a supply diversity professional, or someone who's considering going into business, or someone that's also interested in getting more engaged in procurement through supply diversity. So please share.
I'll start. I believe in keeping things simple. It's really easy to get overwhelmed by all the things that we've shared, but at the end of the day, know that you're powerful. You have purchasing power as an individual. You have purchasing power within your organization that you can influence. Use it. You're going to buy this stuff anyway. Make sure that at least some of it goes to members of the LGBT community, or ethnic minorities, or women-owned businesses, or people with disabilities, or any members of your community that you say you care about. You know, just leverage your purchasing power. Make sure they have an equal opportunity to win your business. And that will transform the world as we know it instantly if we all had that awareness and acted on it.
Gary, I know you got some philosophy here that you can share.
I think it's very important, as I always say to members of my team, wherever I'm involved in, We all need to own our space and recognize exactly what Elizabeth has said, that we have the power to make decisions and that we have the power to be the change. And if it's you willingly wanting to drive that change and leveraging what power you have, what influence you have to bring about that change. And we are here as organizations to support you on that journey, because it's not about creating one big wave. Every little small ripple, as they add up to each other, creates the big wave. And we are but ripples in a pond, but together we can create that big tsunami that we need to drive this inclusion that we need within our economic environment.
Pavel?
Maybe I just wanted to jump in, extend what Gary was saying, that, I mean, for us, and this is my personal belief, that every person can make a change. I represent here EGLCC, but I also co-founded East Meets West, which is then focusing on a Central East European region. And we were just two of us starting 8 years ago, and we simply roll out the sleeves and we simply jump in the water. And I think this is an example that we don't need actually, I don't know, like wait for lots of formal decisions and formalities. No, can just be interested. And now it applies to both the small business side, but also to the corporate side, but simply to be interested and to simply make one little thing in a day. And if we pile up all of the small little things, which everybody will do in a day, then I'm sure we are part of something super big and impactful.
Absolutely, and I loved what you said. Be interested, be curious. I would like to add as well, and I think it is like Elizabeth said. It's actually very simple, and you don't have to go it alone, right? Because you don't just have this panel, which is also recorded if you want to listen to it again. But you have so many organizations and people have done it already. Who can help you to understand what you need to do, where you need to start. Like I say, you're not alone on your journey where you need to start, but we already have stumbled before, so we can help you not to stumble and drive your program quicker than maybe we have done. So there's help. We can collaborate like we're already doing in Europe and around the world. So just reach out to us and we'll get you started.
I think from my end, I think as we move into 2022, my focus is to make supplier diversity get that sustained pressure from corporates. We need to make sure that we have our focus on future supply chains. How can we build supply chains of the future that are diverse? How can we focus on our young people coming out of universities with innovative ideas? How can we help them build sustainable business? How can we help them bring their ideas to life? Because at the moment, the young generation, young communities with lack of jobs in marketplace, they are looking for turning into entrepreneurship. They're turning towards entrepreneurship. We need, as advocacy organizations, we need to make sure that we provide them support so that we are building future supply chain solutions for our corporate members.
Cassandra?
Supplier diversity is not short term. It's here for to stay. We've recognized it now, but it's been around for a while and now it's come to the forefront. We have to be intentional as we move forward. I'm very much aligned to our suppliers, those we have with us, those who are considering coming forward, be future oriented, not the traditional, look for where the gaps in the supply, our economy has churned. There are gaps been exposed, identify where you can benefit and fit in those gaps. We're there to help you move that forward. And I just want corporations who have who have jumped out in front and said, I want to be part of this. We can help you through that. We want this to be here to stay. We have great value, can help you move the yardsticks. Come to us. Anyone around this screen can assist you in moving us forward because we want our economy to grow more than it has to date.
Justin.
Yeah, I would say collaborate. Look at this event today, collaborate. And I have the utmost degree of respect for every organization on this call, and more importantly, for every leader on this call. And I don't think I'm out of place by saying, I speak for, I'm sure, everyone in saying that it's our job to help you, no matter where you are in your journey as a company. It's our job. And it's kind of corny. We have nearly 350 corporate partners. The pandemic has brought out a lot of new partners. I think probably for all of us, it's about sustaining that. And it is our job to help you build that case. So it's to Cassandra's point earlier, it's not about being here today and short-term memory sets in and they're gone tomorrow. We have a saying, and it's corny, but we don't have sponsors, we have partners. A sponsor you see once a year at an event, and a partner is all year long, whether you want to see us or not. And that's what we've got to build and continue to nourish that. So it is our job, and it's incumbent upon us to help you reach your goals and to help you with your business case internally. So support's here for these organizations and others that aren't with us today, tomorrow, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, because we are truly impacting the diverse business communities around the globe. So collaborate, build the business case, engage those partnerships that you all pay for. That is our job. And the last thing, have fun. Who wants to go to work every day and be miserable? So make sure that you're having fun no matter what you're doing, or find a way to have fun, or think about a career change. So that would be my nuggets of, I don't know if I'd call them wisdom, but I'll just say those are my nuggets.
We'll call them wisdom, Justin. We'll call them wisdom. Let me say to everyone in the audience, what you just heard from each of the panelists is that they are willing to assist, but they cannot help you if you don't reach out to them. This is the forum in which they're reaching out to you, saying, please reach out to them. And I assure you that whatever question you have, at least one of them has the answer. You know, one of the things that I learned many years ago from a lady that I would call my business mother, I was working on a problem and I called her about something I was working on, but it was not this problem. And as we finished, she said to me, she says, Clifford, something's wrong. And I said, no, I'm fine. She says, no, something's wrong. And I said, well, I've been working on this problem for the last 2 weeks. And she said, share with me the problem. I did, and she gave me the answer just like that. Now, here was the lesson, or the whooping, which was, she said to me that your problem is that you think your problem is unique. And I've carried that around, and what I've since learned is that the smartest people work on a problem short term, but they also reach out to their network to whom they think may very well have the answer and seek it out, because time is not something you get back. And therefore, the sooner you get to the answer, the better you are. So again, I am requesting each and every one of you to reach out to this panel to get answers to the problems that you face. Because as it said, we're not going to change this in a wave. It's going to come in little ripples. But when you put those ripples together, it makes the change that we want to see. So let me just say thank you, Cassandra, Elizabeth, Gary, Mayank, Pavel, Peter, Justin, and you, the audience, for participating today. And we definitely have to thank Procurement Foundry for positioning us in order to be able to share and for you to be able to listen. So please show up and show out the next time we are with you. Maybe there will, maybe there won't be a part 3, but if you want it, we'll bring it. Thank you again. Addressing the big question, what do we mean by supply diversity around the world, part 2, has been completed. Have an amazing, wonderful, and exciting day. Thank you all. Mike, back to you, since you've shown back up, because I know you have some other closing words you'd like to share. Thank you for allowing me to be your host.
I just wanted to thank Clifford for taking us down this journey again today. You run a great panel. Thank you, Clifford, and thank you to all the attendees who came. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart on a global basis. And I love the fact that we can continue to attempt to leverage Procurement Foundry and our 5,000 global members to be able to help in this process, this progress, this the communication that needs to take place on a global basis. And once again, I'm humbled by the knowledge that I've learned with all of you. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. We had record numbers on LinkedIn today, again, with all of you. So thank you for that. We do have the recording, and we've had some people ask us for the first recording. So obviously we had some new people here in the audience today. And my mind is running with new ideas of things that we can all do together. So Claire and I will reach out to you separately with some ideas that we have around continuing to communicate this. I think it was it was Justin that said, this isn't something that you're going to see me all the time. This is something that we want to continue to push all the time, to the point that we might be a little bit annoying, but it's that important to do this. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much. Appreciate all of you in all your different time zones, and thanks again for an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Take
Take
care.
care, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.